some people would say, well, what if the whole thing was just a myth? What if Luke believed that Jesus existed, but he didn't really exist? What if this is all made up? Your argument is that mythicism, which is what that is called, Jesus never exists, mythicism actually doesn't have a solid foundation. Because I've heard people, here at the church, I've had people say, I don't even think Jesus existed, that he never really lived, never walked the earth.
I know, but no scholar thinks that. But it's catching on the popular level. A growing percentage of people in the UK have bought into this nonsense that, there was no Jesus. Somebody just made that
So why
up.
would they buy into that? Well, why is that view spreading? Tell us academically, like historians, again, Christians or non-Christians, are there people who really doubt that Jesus even existed?
Well, no scholar doubts that, but the mythicists are mostly cranks, and they're online in the blogosphere. However, there is one mythicist named Richard Carrier who has a PhD in history, so he's unique.
So there's only one, don't miss that. There's one mythicist who propagates this who actually has a PhD. Nobody else is an academic.
In an appropriate field, ancient history, Columbia University in New York. I debated him a week and a half ago. So I'm very current on his thinking. And even he is having a crisis of faith. He's saying, golly, Jesus might exist after all. And I had a great debate with him. And where I hammered away was Galatians 1 and 2. Because, nobody disputes the authenticity of about 7 of Paul's letters. They might dispute some, but they don't dispute the authenticity of Paul's letter to the churches of Galatia and 6 other letters. They accept
And he
them.
wouldn't either.
He doesn't dispute them either. Okay? Well, in Galatians chapters 1 and 2, it's all narrative about Paul's relationship with the pillars of the church. Paul, remember, was not one of the original 12. Mm-hmm. And so some said, what kind of apostle are you? You weren't one of the original 12. You didn't know Jesus during his ministry. And so Paul is debating with this. And it has to do with Gentiles and Jews they're all Christians sitting down together in fellowship, eating the same food and so on. To us, that's not strange, but that was a big deal then. And so anyway, in talking about this dispute, Paul says, I spoke to Peter and I spoke to John. Now, these are 2 of the most important original 12 disciples. Peter, number 1, John, a close second. He knew them personally, okay? These are disciples of Jesus. They're not disciples of a myth. They're disciples of a real person. But this is even better. He goes on to talk about Jesus' brother James. Paul has not heard of James. He's met him. He knows him. Bart Ehrman wrote a book, Bart Ehrman the skeptic, called Did Jesus Exist? He was misrepresented in a recent Maclean's. Mm-hmm. Bart Ehrman wrote a book, Did Jesus Exist? And he concluded 100% yes, there was a historical Jesus. He has debated Richard Carrier. And what I like, take this home with you, this is Bart Ehrman, this is not Billy Graham, it's not the Pope, it's Bart Ehrman, the skeptic. He says, if Jesus didn't exist, you'd think his brother James would have known that. Absolutely. Bart and I are actually friends. We've debated several times. Yes, we have differences of opinion on important topics. But on that topic, we are totally united. And I hammered away at Richard Carrier. He wrote a 700-page book about there's reason for doubt that probably, he does admit that Jesus might have existed, but probably he didn't. And I just hammered away on Galatians 1 and 2. And he said, well, maybe that was some other James. No, he's called the Lord's brother. Nobody else is called that. Well, maybe, and I just kept hammering away. Well, that's not what all the scholars think. Why are you the odd man out? I just hammered away. And he said, well, I admit the existence of Jesus is plausible. So that's good.
Yeah.
We're getting somewhere. One or 2 more debates.
And he's the only academic.
And he's the only one with a PhD in history.
Yeah. So